The space station floated quietly above the planet Kepler 442b. Inside the main hall, creatures from 17 different worlds gathered together. Some had wings, some had scales, some looked like walking rocks. Commander Jake Morrison stood near the big window, looking down at the clouds below. He was a human from Earth. His people had just joined the Galactic Coalition 3 months ago. A tall insect-like alien walked up behind him. Her name was Thelzara. She had many eyes that caught the light from the room. "Commander Morrison," she said in a clicking voice, "today might be difficult for you." Before Jake could ask why, something strange happened. Every alien in the room suddenly ran toward the doors. They moved fast. Some flew, some crawled. Even the big stone aliens backed away from the main entrance. Fear filled the air like smoke. "What is happening?" Jake asked. His hand moved to the weapon on his belt. Thelzara's mouth parts clicked fast. "The warlord of Krell has arrived. The Krillians are sending someone here." Jake watched the huge doors slide open. What came through made his heart beat faster. It was a monster from nightmares. The creature stood 3 meters tall. Black armor covered its body like dark metal. It had 6 arms. 4 ended in sharp claws that looked like knives. 2 powerful legs held up its massive body. Its head had horns like a crown. Red eyes glowed like fire. Behind this terrifying beast, a small human woman walked in. She wore a simple gray suit. She was short, maybe 160 centimeters tall. Her brown hair was pulled back. She walked next to the monster like it was normal, like she was not afraid at all. "That is a Krillian war beast," Thelzara whispered. Her voice shook. "They are living weapons, made for war over thousands of years. That one is called Vexthor the Render. It has destroyed whole armies. It conquered 12 worlds. The people who made them are dead now, killed by their own creations. These creatures rule the Krell Dominion through fear." Jake studied the beast. Every species in the room had moved far away. Some had left completely. The creature looked around the room like a hunter looking at prey. "Who is the human?" Jake asked. "That is Dr. Lisa Yang. She went to the Krell Dominion 6 weeks ago. She was part of a science exchange program. Now she is Vexthor's handler. No one knows how she survived meeting him. No one knows why he lets her stay near him." Lisa Yang walked to the center of the room. She did not care that she was the only one within 20 meters of the war beast. She touched her tablet computer and spoke clearly. "Good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Lisa Yang from the Human Xenobiology Institute. I am here for the Krell Dominion today with Vexthor. We know there are worries about trade route safety in the outer spiral. Vexthor has agreed to share the Dominion's thoughts on these matters." The war beast made a deep sound. It was part growl, part music. The translation devices struggled to understand it. Lisa looked at her tablet and nodded. "Vexthor says the Dominion will promise safe travel through Sector 719er, but they want mineral rights to 3 empty systems as payment." Jake found himself walking forward. He was curious. Fear tried to stop him, but he kept moving. As he got closer, he saw Vexthor's red eyes watching him. The eyes got brighter. "Commander, no," Thelzara said quietly, but Jake kept going. He stopped about 3 meters from Lisa and Vexthor, close enough to talk normally but not too close. "Dr. Yang, I am Commander Jake Morrison from Earth Expeditionary Fleet. Can I ask how you ended up in this position?" Lisa smiled. It was a normal, friendly smile. It looked strange next to the monster beside her. "Oh, it is actually a funny story. When I arrived at the Dominion, they put me in a strong security room. Force fields, armed guards, everything. They brought Vexthor in to look at the human, to study me." Vexthor made another rumbling sound. Lisa laughed. "Yes, I remember. You were trying to be very scary." She turned back to Jake. "He did this whole show, roaring, showing his teeth, moving all 6 arms. Very impressive, really. But I had spent the last year studying Earth's dangerous animals. I knew what dominance behavior looked like. So instead of screaming or fainting like they expected, I just stood there. I started taking notes on my tablet." "You took notes?" Jake could not help but smile. "Detailed notes," Lisa said. "Body shape, behavior patterns, threat displays." After about 10 minutes, Vexthor seemed confused. He came closer. He was trying to understand why I was not scared. That is when I noticed he had a bad cut on his left shoulder. Probably from a fight, so I asked if he would let me look at it. Thelzara had moved closer. She was listening with shock. "You asked to examine a wound on Vexthor the Render?" "Well, it looked infected," Lisa said, like it was obvious. Turns out Krillian bodies can get sick from a certain type of bacteria. I had medical supplies to treat it. After that, we just sort of became friends, I guess. Vexthor made a sound like a purr mixed with a rumble. One of his huge clawed hands reached out. Very gently, he patted Lisa on the shoulder. She did not even jump. Jake started laughing. The sound seemed to break the fear in the room. So let me understand this. The most feared war beast in the galaxy has conquered worlds and destroyed armies. And he works with you now because you were not afraid? Oh, I was terrified, Lisa said quickly. I am not stupid. But I was also curious. I knew that showing fear would just prove to him that he was stronger. Dangerous animals respect confidence. And also he really needed that wound cleaned. It could have become very bad. More aliens were slowly coming back into the room now. They watched this impossible scene with wonder and confusion. Jake could see the same question in their eyes that he was thinking. What kind of people walk up to something that could kill them in seconds? Commander Morrison. Vexthor's voice came through the translators. It was deep and strong. Your female shows wisdom. She does not run from strength. This is rare in the galaxy. That is not completely fair, Vexthor, Lisa said. Most species have good survival instincts. Humans just tend to mix that with too much curiosity. Jake held out his hand to Lisa. She shook it firmly. Dr. Yang, I think you and I should talk more about your methods. Earth Command would be very interested in how you deal with other species. I would like that, Lisa said. Then she added, Oh, and Commander? Would you like to pet him? He is actually quite smooth under the armor plates. Jake looked up at the huge war beast, at the glowing red eyes and the sharp claws, then at Lisa's completely serious face. Around the room he could hear the various aliens making sounds of shock. You know what? Jake said, surprising himself. Sure, why not? He reached up and touched the creature. The armor was warm and smooth under his hand. Vexthor made a sound that almost seemed happy. Jake Morrison realized something important. Humanity's place in the galaxy might be very different from what anyone expected. The galaxy had learned to fear the war beasts of Krell. But perhaps it was time they learned something about humans too. Humans did not always step back from fear. Sometimes they stepped forward with curiosity instead, and sometimes that made all the difference. 3 days passed since the meeting at the space station. Commander Jake Morrison sat in the station's eating area. Across from him sat Dr. Lisa Yang. About 5 meters away, Vexthor the Render was eating his meal. He used special tools made for his claws to eat protein blocks and some kind of metal supplement. So, Jake said, watching in wonder as Vexthor ate carefully with his forearms. How does one feed a living war machine? Lisa drank her coffee. He is not a machine, Commander. That is what everyone gets wrong. The Krillians are thinking, feeling beings. They were just made for fighting over thousands of years. It does not make them mindless. Lisa teaches me about Earth books, Vexthor said. His translated voice sounded almost peaceful. Right now we study mystery novels. I find the detective Sherlock Holmes uses good observation methods. They work for combat strategy too. Jake almost choked on his coffee. You are reading Sherlock Holmes? The complete collection, Lisa confirmed. He really likes The Hound of the Baskervilles. He says he relates to the Hound. Before Jake could answer, the doors burst open. Armed security guards came in. Behind them walked a tall figure in red armor. The symbol on his chest showed he was a high officer of the Vrath Imperium. The room went silent. Other people eating quickly took their food and left. Jake knew who this was. General Korth of the Vrath. His species was known for being strong fighters. They hated the Krillians. The Vrath had lost 3 colony worlds to Krillian attacks over the past 100 years. So, Korth's voice boomed through his helmet speakers. The rumors are true. A human plays pet keeper to a Krillian beast. Vexthor slowly put down his eating tools, his red eyes fixed on the general. The room seemed to get colder. Lisa stood up calmly. General Korth, I assume? I am Dr. Lisa Yang. If you want to discuss diplomatic relations between the Vrath Imperium and the Krell Dominion, I would be happy to schedule a formal meeting. I do not negotiate with animals, Korth said with anger, and I do not understand why the humans would ally themselves with murderers. Jake stood up too. His hand moved toward his weapon. General, this is a neutral diplomatic station. Whatever problems you have should be handled through proper channels. Korth laughed harshly. The human soldier speaks of proper channels. Tell me, Commander, do you know what these creatures did to the colony of Vrath Prime? They tore through our defenses like paper. 15,000 civilians killed. Children ripped from their parents' arms. Vexthor stood to his full height. He was taller than everyone in the room. His voice was cold and hard. I was at Wrath Prime. I led the attack. Your colony was built on land claimed by the Dominion. Your people refused to leave. War has consequences. You admit it then. Korth's hand moved to his weapon. You are a murderer. I am a soldier, Vexthor said. As are you. I have killed many in battle. I do not feel pride. I do not feel shame. It is what I was created to do. Lisa stepped between them. Jake's heart almost stopped. She was so small compared to these warriors. But she did not hesitate. Gentlemen, she said firmly, we are not doing this here. General Korth, Vexthor has shown interest in exploring peace talks with the Vrath Imperium. That is actually why we are at this station. If you want to discuss terms, let us do it in a conference room, not an eating area. Peace talks? Korth's voice was full of hate. With a beast? There is an old Vrath saying. A predator may sleep, but it never stops being a predator. We have a similar saying on Earth, Jake said. Never judge a book by its cover. And another one. People who live in glass houses should not throw stones. General, the Vrath Imperium's own military history is not exactly clean from what I have read. Korth's attention snapped to Jake. You dare compare us to these abominations? I dare point out that war crimes are war crimes no matter who does them, Jake said evenly. And I also suggest that maybe continuing cycles of violence is not the answer. Spoken like a naive child, Korth said with contempt. Your species is young. You have not faced the Krillians in true battle. You have not watched as they tear through your defenses, showing no mercy. Actually, Lisa said quietly, Vexthor has been teaching me about Krillian battle doctrine. Did you know that they always offer surrender terms before an attack? 3 times, in fact. It is part of their war code. Lies, Korth hissed. It is documented in our own military records, Vexthor said. Your people at Wrath Prime refused all 3 offers. They chose to fight. We honored that choice. The tension in the room was thick. Jake could see Korth's hand tightening on his weapon. He could see Vexthor's muscles tensing under his armor. This was about to turn violent, General, Jake said carefully. Let me ask you something. What would victory look like to you? You kill Vexthor here now, then what? The Krell Dominion sends another war beast, then another. The cycle continues. Or, hear me out, we try something different. Different. Korth's voice was skeptical. Different, Lisa confirmed. What if, instead of continuing this conflict, we actually tried to understand each other? The Krillians are not mindless killers. They are a warrior culture, yes, but they have honor codes, traditions, even art and literature. She speaks truth, Vexthor added. I do not wish for endless war, General. I wish for what all warriors wish for. Victory, yes, but also purpose beyond destruction. Lisa has shown me that there can be more. Korth was silent for a long moment. Then he removed his helmet. His face was scarred and old. His eyes held a lifetime of pain. My son died at Wrath Prime. He was 6 years old. The confession hung in the air like a heavy weight. Lisa's face softened. I am sorry, she said simply. Truly, no parent should lose a child. But General, your son's death, all those deaths, they cannot be meaningless. If we can make some kind of peace from this, if we can prevent the next Wrath Prime, would that not honor their memory better than continuing to kill? Pretty words, Korth said. But his voice had lost some of its anger. But words are cheap, Dr. Yang. Then let us offer more than words, Vexthor said. He reached up with one massive hand and removed a piece of his armor. Under it, Jake could see scar tissue from countless battles. This is my primary heart plate. It is the most vulnerable point on my body. I place it on this table as a gesture of trust. He set the plate down with a heavy sound. The act was stunning. A Krillian war beast was voluntarily removing his armor in front of his sworn enemy. Lisa looked at Vexthor with something like pride in her eyes. Then she turned to Korth. General, I cannot change the past. Neither can Vexthor. But we can change what happens next. Will you at least consider talking? Not here, not now, but in a formal setting where we can discuss terms? Korth stared at the armor plate on the table. Jake watched emotions cross the General's face. Rage, grief, suspicion, and perhaps, just perhaps, the smallest bit of hope. One meeting, Korth finally said. One chance. But Dr. Yang, you should know that I am not the only Vrath who wants revenge. There are many who would see all Krillians wiped from existence. I know, Lisa said. And there are Krillians who feel the same about the Vrath. That is why this matters. Someone has to be brave enough to take the first step. After Korth and his guards left, Jake let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. Dr. Yang, you have either the biggest courage or the smallest sense of self-preservation I have ever seen. Lisa smiled tiredly. Little bit of both, probably. But Commander, this is important. If humans are going to make a place for ourselves in this galaxy, we need to be the ones willing to bridge divides. We are new here. We do not have the baggage of ancient feuds. That is our advantage. Vexthor carefully replaced his armor plate. The human female understands what many do not. Strength is not only in the ability to destroy, but also in the courage to show vulnerability. This is a warrior's wisdom. Jake nodded slowly. I will file a report with Earth Command. They need to know about this. Dr. Yang, you are officially making history here. Just another day at the office, Lisa said with a shrug, but Jake could see the tension in her shoulders. The way her hand shook slightly as she picked up her coffee cup, she was scared. Of course she was. She was playing mediator between forces that could crush her without thinking. But she was doing it anyway. That, Jake thought, was the most human thing of all. 2 weeks later, Conference Room 7 on the space station had been changed into neutral ground for what many called either the most important peace, summit in a century, or a complete waste of time. Commander Jake Morrison stood in the observation gallery above the main conference floor. He watched as delegates walked in. He had been assigned as Earth's official observer for the talks. His bosses wanted humanity to be seen as active participants in galactic diplomacy. Below, the room was arranged in a careful, neutral way. No head table, no positions of power, just a circular setup that put everyone on equal ground. The Vrath Imperium had sent General Korth and 2 advisors. The Krell Dominion was represented by Vexthor and a smaller Krillian named Zeshirai, who was apparently some kind of diplomat, and there, in the middle of it all, was Dr. Lisa Yang. She looked calm and professional in a formal gray suit. Her tablet was in her hand and a small translation device sat on the table in front of her. You think this will work? A voice asked beside him. Jake turned to see Ambassador Chen Wei, Earth's chief representative to the coalition. She was a veteran diplomat in her 60s with sharp eyes. I think if anyone can make it work, it is Dr. Yang, Jake replied. She is either brilliant or insane, Chen Wei said. Possibly both. Below, Lisa called the meeting to order. Thank you all for coming. I know this is not easy for anyone. Before we begin formal negotiations, I would like to establish some ground rules. First, we speak with respect. Second, we acknowledge that all parties here have real problems. Third, we are here to find solutions, not to argue about the past. Can we agree to these terms? There was a tense silence. Then Korth nodded shortly. Agreed. The Krell Dominion agrees, Vexthor rumbled. Excellent, Lisa said. Let us start with the core issue. Territorial disputes in the outer spiral. General Korth, the Vrath position is that the Krell Dominion has been aggressively expanding into space that was claimed by the Imperium. Vexthor, the Dominion's position is that these territories were unclaimed and that Vrath settlements were established after Krell scouts had already mapped the region. Is that accurate? It is, both parties said at the same time. Lisa nodded. Okay. So we have a fundamental disagreement about who has legitimate claims. Rather than trying to prove who is right about the past, what if we focused on establishing a framework for future territorial claims, one that both sides can agree to? Zeshirai, the Krillian diplomat, spoke for the first time. Her voice was higher than Vexthor's but still carried authority. The Dominion would be willing to accept a neutral arbitration council for disputed territories, provided the council includes Krillian representation. The Imperium cannot accept Krillian judges in any arbitration process, Korth countered. Your people are the aggressors. From your perspective, Vexthor said. From ours, you are the ones who refuse to acknowledge legitimate Krell claims. Jake watched as the conversation threatened to fall into the same circular arguments that had fueled decades of conflict. But then Lisa did something unexpected. She stood up and walked to a holographic display at the center of the room. Gentlemen, if I may, she activated the display, bringing up a star chart of the disputed region. What if we tried a completely different approach? What if, instead of arguing about who has the right to expand into these territories, we considered joint development? Joint? Korth looked shocked. You expect us to work alongside the Krillians? Why not? Lisa zoomed in on a specific system. Look at System J447. It has 3 habitable planets and massive mineral wealth. Planet 1 has a climate ideal for Vrath colonization. Planet 3 has high gravity and a different atmosphere that would actually suit Krillian bodies better. The planets would naturally separate your populations, reducing friction. And the mineral wealth is enough that both parties could benefit from shared mining operations. You propose we simply divide it? HFY asked, her tone thoughtful. I propose you cooperate, Lisa corrected. Joint defense of the system. Shared infrastructure for resource extraction. Separate colonies, yes, but coordinated governance. You would have to work together, which means you would have to actually communicate and find common ground. The Vrath do not cooperate with murderers, Korth said, but Jake noticed his voice lacked the conviction it had held before. Vexthor stood. His massive form cast a shadow across the table. For a moment Jake tensed, but the war beast simply looked down at Korth. General, Vexthor said slowly, I have killed many Vrath, this is truth. But I have also studied your people these past weeks at Lisa's urging. I have read about the Vrath honor codes, about your poetry, about your concept of Kajarath, the warrior's burden. We Krillians have a similar concept. Vexkresh, it means the weight of necessary violence. We are not so different, you and I. Korth's face was unreadable. You dare compare our cultures? I dare recognize a fellow warrior, Vexthor replied. And I dare say that perhaps our peoples have more in common than either wishes to admit. We both value strength. We both have codes of honor. We both bear the weight of what war demands of us. Lisa jumped back in. General Korth, in my research on Earth history, I have found that some of the strongest alliances were formed between former enemies. France and Germany fought 3 devastating wars but eventually became partners. England and America went to war, then became close allies. The pattern repeats throughout our history. Former enemies recognizing that cooperation serves their interests better than continued conflict. Earth history is not galactic history, Korth said, but Jake could hear the uncertainty in his voice. No, but humans are proof that species can change their relationships, Lisa pressed. We are new here, but we have already established positive relations with dozens of species, including some who initially saw us as threats. It is possible, General. Hard, but possible. In the observation gallery, Ambassador Chen Wei leaned toward Jake. She is actually getting through to him. Look at his posture. It has shifted from defensive to contemplative. Jake nodded. Below, he could see Korth's shoulders had relaxed slightly. His hands were no longer clenched. He was actually looking at the star chart Lisa had displayed instead of glaring at Vexthor. Lisa, Jake spoke into the communicator that would send to her earpiece. Suggest a small pilot program. Do not push for full cooperation yet. If Lisa heard him, she did not show it, but her next words followed his suggestion. What if we started small, System J447 as a pilot program? Limited populations. Say 1,000 colonists from each side, a trial period of 2 years. If it works, we expand the model. If it does not, both sides can walk away with minimal investment lost. And if the Krillians betray us during this trial, Korth asked, then you would have justification for a military response that even the neutral coalition members would support. Lisa said bluntly. Right now, General, the galaxy sees this as a cycle of retaliation. Both sides claiming self-defense. Both sides committing bad acts. But if the Krillians break a formal treaty during a peace initiative, that changes everything. You would have the moral high ground. It was a smart argument, Jake realized. Lisa was appealing not just to hope for peace, but to strategic advantage. HFY tilted her head. A gesture Jake was learning meant interest in Krillian body language. The Dominion would agree to such terms, provided there are clear consequences for treaty violations from either side. Both sides would be bound by the same rules, Lisa confirmed. Earth would be willing to help establish monitoring systems if that helps. We do not have the baggage you two have with each other, so we could serve as neutral observers. Humans would do this? Korth asked, looking up at the observation gallery where Jake stood. Jake activated his own communicator. His voice broadcast into the room. General Korth, Ambassador HFY Vexthor. Earth has a saying, be the change you want to see in the world. If Dr. Yang thinks this can work and if both of your peoples are willing to try, then yes, Earth will support this initiative. Why? Vexthor asked, his red eyes fixed on the observation window. What does Earth gain from involving yourselves in our conflict? Jake considered his answer carefully. Honestly, We gain the chance to prove that diplomacy can work even in the hardest circumstances. We are new to this galaxy, and we are still figuring out our place in it. But if we can help broker peace between two peoples who have been at war for generations, then maybe we have found our role. Bridge builders. Ambassador Chen Wei gave Jake a sharp look but did not contradict him. He had just committed Earth to a big undertaking without direct authorization. But sometimes that is what field commanders had to do. Korth was silent for a long moment. Then he reached up and removed a medal from his armor, a red star with 3 points. This is the Vrath Medal of Valor. I earned it at Vrath Prime defending my people from the Krillian assault. He set it on the table. I place this here as a symbol. If the Dominion is willing to engage in this trial program in good faith, then the Imperium will do the same. Vexthor reached into a compartment on his armor and withdrew a small, carefully carved piece of what looked like bone. This is a Vexcresh token, carved from the horn of my ancestor. It represents the burden of war that all Krillian warriors carry. I too place it as a symbol of commitment to this process. Lisa looked at both tokens, then at the delegates. Jake could see the emotion in her eyes, though 6 months had passed since the treaty signing. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the Earth transport ship Unity. He watched as System J447 grew larger in the windows. Beside him, Dr. Lisa Yang was reviewing data on her tablet. Vexthor stood in a specially reinforced section of the deck. His red eyes were fixed on the approaching planets. Planet 1 looks beautiful, Lisa said, pointing to the blue-green world on the left side of the window. Vrath Colony New Dawn is already establishing their first settlements there. Early reports say the climate is perfect for their bodies. And Planet 3, Vexthor added with an unusual note of something that might have been anticipation in his voice, will serve the Dominion well. High gravity, sulfur-rich atmosphere, volcanic activity providing heat. It will feel like home. Jake reviewed his own briefing materials. The past 6 months had been busy. After the treaty signing, both the Vrath Imperium and the Krell Dominion had committed resources to the joint project. Earth had provided the neutral monitoring systems, the communication infrastructure, and most importantly, the human personnel who would serve as liaisons and mediators. It had not been easy. There had been protests on both sides. Political opposition from hardliners who saw any cooperation as betrayal. 3 different assassination attempts had been made on the negotiating team, 2 targeting Vexthor and 1 targeting General Korth. All had been stopped, but they served as reminders of how fragile this peace really was. Colony ship Vrath's Honor is on approach vector to Planet 1, the Unity's pilot announced. Colony ship Krell's Fang is moving toward Planet 3. We are coordinating landing schedules now. Lisa looked up from her tablet. And we are heading to the orbital station between the 2 planets. Our monitoring post is ready? Fully operational, Jake confirmed. We have a team of 20 Earth personnel, plus advanced sensors to track activity on both planets. If anything goes wrong, we will know immediately. When anything goes wrong, Vexthor corrected, there will be incidents. This is inevitable when old enemies must work in proximity. Optimistic as always, Lisa said with a slight smile. Realistic, Vexthor replied. But this is why the monitoring system is valuable. Small incidents can be contained before they escalate. As they watched, the 2 colony ships began their descent to their respective planets. Jake felt a weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. So many people were depending on this working, not just the 1,000 Vrath and 1,000 Krillians who were putting their lives on the line by settling these worlds, but also the countless others across the galaxy who were watching to see if ancient enemies could truly find peace. 2 hours later, Jake stood in the central command center of Monitoring Station Unity. The station was positioned at a point between planets 1 and 3, giving them a good view of both worlds. Around him, human technicians monitored screens displaying everything from atmospheric conditions to communication intercepts. Sir, Lieutenant Amy Peterson called from her station. We are receiving first reports from both colonies. Vrath's Honor has successfully landed and begun deploying their settlement modules. Krell's Fang is approaching their landing zone now. Any issues? Jake asked. Nothing major. Vrath Colony New Dawn is reporting all systems normal. They are starting to establish their perimeter and set up basic infrastructure. Lisa stood at the central holographic display, watching data streams from both planets. This is the critical first week. Both sides will be focused on establishing their own settlements. which gives them less time to worry about the other side. Once they are settled in, that is when we will see how the joint operations really function. You sound worried, Jake observed. I am worried, Lisa admitted. This is 1,000 lives on each side, Jake. If something goes wrong, if violence breaks out, it will not just be a failed experiment. Real people will die. Before Jake could respond, Vexthor's deep voice rumbled through the command center. He had been given quarters on the station specifically modified to accommodate his size. Dr. Yang, you honor these people with your concern. But remember, both Vrath and Krillians are warriors. We understand risk. Those who volunteered for this colony knew the dangers. That does not make me feel better, Lisa said quietly. The first week passed without major incident, though not without challenges. The Vrath colonists discovered that Planet 1's soil had an unexpectedly high mineral content that interfered with some of their agricultural equipment. The Krillians found that Planet 3's volcanic activity was more intense than initial surveys had suggested, forcing them to relocate their primary settlement site. But both colonies persevered, and more importantly, they communicated. When the Vrath needed to adjust their terraforming equipment, they sent a request to the central station, which forwarded it to Earth. When the Krillians needed updated geological surveys, they went through the same channels. The real test came on day 9. Commander Morrison, Lieutenant Peterson's voice was urgent. We have a situation. One of the Vrath colonists has been injured in an industrial accident. The colony's medical facilities are still being set up, and they do not have the equipment to treat him. He is going to die without immediate help. Jake moved to her station. What is the nature of the injury? Severe crush damage to his chest. He needs surgical stabilization, but the Vrath medical team does not have the right tools yet. How long does he have? Maybe 6 hours, Jake's mind raced. The nearest coalition medical facility was 2 days away at best speed. Earth's medical ship was not equipped to treat Vrath bodies. There was no way to save the colonists through normal means. Wait, Lisa said, looking up from her own console. The Krillians. Vexthor, your people have extensive experience with battlefield medicine, right? Including treating other species that you have captured? Vexthor's eyes narrowed. We do. Krillian medical officers are trained to stabilize various body types. It is necessary when taking prisoners for information. Could you treat a Vrath with crush injuries? Lisa asked directly. Possibly, Vexthor said slowly. But you must understand. Asking the Vrath to accept medical aid from a Krillian, particularly one of their wounded warriors, is possibly the most difficult thing we could ask, Lisa finished. But what is the alternative? Let him die to preserve pride? Jake made his decision. Lieutenant Peterson, open a channel to Colony New Dawn, specifically to General Korth. He came to observe the colony personally, right? He did, sir. He is on planet now. Get him on the line. A moment later, General Korth's face appeared on the screen. Behind him, Jake could see the structures of the young Vrath colony. Commander Morrison, what is it? General, we have a situation. Jake explained the injury and the limited options. The only medical assistance that can reach your colonist in time is Krillian. We can transport a Krillian medical team from Planet 3 to Planet 1 within the hour. But I need your authorization. Korth's face was stone. You ask me to allow a Krillian to touch one of my people? A Krillian who has likely killed Vrath in the past? I ask you to save a life, General, Jake said firmly. That is what this colony is supposed to be about, is it not? Finding a way past the hatred? The silence stretched. Then a new voice came over the comm. General Korth, this is Colony Chief Martin Hughes of the Earth Liaison Team on Planet 1. The injured colonist is named Sethron. He is 23 years old. He has a mate and a child back on the Vrath homeworld. If he dies here, this colony's chances of success drop significantly. But more than that, sir, he is a person, and he deserves a chance to live. Korth closed his eyes. When he opened them, Jake could see the struggle written across his face. If the Krillian medical team hurts him, if they use this as an opportunity for revenge, then we will deal with it according to the treaty terms, Lisa interrupted, her voice gentle but firm. But General, I have worked with the Krillians for months now. They have honor codes about healing. A medical officer would no more violate their patient than a Vrath warrior would strike an unarmed opponent. You have such faith in them, Korth said bitterly. I have faith in the possibility of change, Lisa corrected. Will you give Sethron that chance? Another long pause. Then send the Krillian medical team. But Commander Morrison, I want your people present at all times. If anything happens, understood, General. We will have full monitoring and human medical personnel as backup. Within 30 minutes, a Krillian transport had launched from Planet 3. The medical team consisted of 3 Krillians, including a senior medical officer named Thexral, who was smaller than Vexthor but still an imposing figure. Jake, Lisa, and a human emergency medical team accompanied them on the shuttle down to Planet 1. As they approached the Vrath colony, Jake could see the structures arranged in a defensive pattern. A military camp as much as a civilian settlement. The shuttle landed on the designated pad, and Jake saw what had to be dozens of Vrath colonists gathered at a distance, watching. The moment the Krillian medical team descended the ramp, a wave of tension rippled through the Vrath observers. Hands moved toward weapons. Jake could hear the low growls of anger and fear. General Korth stood at the entrance to the medical facility, his posture rigid. Behind him, 8 months after the founding of the joint colonies, Commander Jake Morrison sat in a secure conference room aboard the Earth diplomatic vessel Endeavour. Surrounding him, both in person and via holographic projection, were some of the most powerful figures in the galaxy, ambassadors from the Coalition, military leaders, and representatives from dozens of species. At the center of the table, a holographic display showed System J447, but it no longer showed just 2 colonies. Over the past months, the settlements had grown. More than that, they had begun to truly integrate. Shared mining operations on the mineral-rich asteroid belt, joint defense satellites, even a small spaceport that served both populations. This is unprecedented, Ambassador Thelgzara of the Kresh was saying. Her mandibles clicked in what Jake had learned was a sign of approval. The joint colony has exceeded all projections. Trade between the Vrath and Krillian settlements has increased by 300%. There have been only 7 incidents requiring mediation, and all were resolved peacefully. More than that, Ambassador Chen Wei added, we have received applications from 6 other species pairs who want to establish similar joint colonies. The Delphons and the Granite Kin, the Zelthari and the Hross, even the Quilax and the Vryn, despite their atmospheric incompatibility, which is why we are here, said Grand Admiral Koth of the Coalition Defense Force. The Council needs to decide whether to expand this program or to recognize it as a special case limited to the Vrathkrell situation. Before anyone could respond, the conference room doors opened. In walked Dr. Lisa Yang, followed closely by Vexthor. Behind them came General Korth, now officially the Vrath ambassador to the Joint Colony Project. Sorry we are late, Lisa said, taking a seat. We were dealing with a situation on Planet 3. What kind of situation? Admiral Koth asked, his tone sharp. The good kind, General Korth replied. He activated his own datapad, sharing an image to the central display. It showed a Krillian and a Vrath standing together in what appeared to be a mining facility. Both were wearing work suits adapted to their respective bodies, and they were examining a piece of equipment together. This is Vexcrawl, a Krillian mining engineer, and Telvar, a Vrath systems specialist, Lisa explained. They have been working together for 3 months now. Yesterday, they identified a flaw in our mineral processing system that, if left unchecked, would have caused a catastrophic failure. By working together, they prevented an incident that could have killed dozens of workers from both species. One success story, a skeptical voice said from one of the holographic projections. It was Senator Krav of the Thorian Republic, a species known for keeping to themselves. This does not prove the model is replicable across the galaxy. Vexthor stood, his imposing form commanding attention. Senator Krav speaks from a position of one who has not witnessed what we have witnessed. I have been a warrior for 40 years. I have fought against the Vrath, the Zelthari, the Hross, and a dozen other species. I believe that violence was the only language that mattered, that strength was measured only in the ability to destroy. He paused, his red eyes sweeping the room. I was wrong. Dr. Lisa Yang of Earth showed me this. Not through weakness, but through a different kind of strength. She stood before me when others fled. She treated my wounds when she could have left me to suffer. She taught me that a warrior's greatest victory is not in battle won, but in battle avoided through wisdom. Poetic, Senator Krav replied. But the Thorian Republic has maintained peace for centuries through strength and clear borders. We see no need to entangle ourselves with potential enemies. You maintain peace through isolation, Lisa countered. That is a valid choice, Senator, and no one is suggesting you abandon it. But for species that are already in conflict, that have existing territorial disputes, this model offers an alternative to endless war. Ambassador Thelgzara leaned forward. Dr. Yang, the Council has reviewed your detailed reports. Your psychological assessments, your sociological analyses, your economic projections. But I have a question that goes beyond data. Do you truly believe this can work on a larger scale? Lisa was quiet for a moment. Jake had worked with her long enough to recognize when she was choosing her words carefully. Ambassador, Lisa finally said, on Earth we have a concept called the peace dividend. After major wars, when enemies became allies, both sides benefited enormously from not having to spend resources on conflict. The United States and Japan became close allies after World War II. The European Union formed from the ashes of centuries of warfare. It is possible, but it requires three things. She held up her hand, counting off on her fingers. First, both sides have to want peace more than they want revenge. Second, there need to be practical benefits that both sides can see and measure. And third, you need people willing to bridge the gap, to do the hard work of translation, not just of language, but of culture and understanding. And you believe Earth can provide these bridge builders? Admiral Koth asked. I believe Earth can help, Jake interjected. We are not claiming to be superior or to have all the answers. But we are outsiders to most of these conflicts. We do not have generations of history coloring our perceptions. That makes us useful as neutral mediators. There is another factor, General Korth said, standing to address the assembly. I speak as someone who lost family to Krillian attacks, who has spent his career fighting against the Krell Dominion. When Dr. Yang first proposed this joint colony, I saw it as naive foolishness. But I agreed to try because the alternative endless war was destroying both our peoples. He gestured to Vexthor. This Krillian saved one of my colonists, a young warrior named Sethron, who would have died without Krillian medical intervention. Since that day, I have watched Vrath and Krillians work together, eat near each other, even share stories around evening fires. They are not friends, not yet, but they are no longer simply enemies. And if this fails, Senator Krav pressed, if violence breaks out, if old hatreds resurface, then we will deal with it, Vexthor said. But Senator, I ask you this, how many more must die before we try something different? The Krillian-Vrath conflict has claimed millions of lives over decades. If this experiment saves even a fraction of those future deaths, is it not worth the attempt? The debate continued for hours. Arguments about resources, about security risks, about cultural contamination, and dozens of other concerns. But Jake noticed something as the day wore on. The tone was shifting. Skeptics were still skeptical, but they were asking questions about implementation rather than dismissing the concept outright. Finally, as the meeting neared its end, Ambassador Chen Wei stood. I propose a motion. The coalition authorizes the expansion of the Joint Colony Program to 3 additional species pairs, with full support and monitoring. Earth will continue to provide neutral mediation services. We will reconvene in 1 standard year to assess results. I second the motion, Ambassador Thelgzara said immediately. The vote was close, but it passed. As the various representatives filed out of the conference room, some congratulating each other and others still grumbling about the risks, Jake felt a hand on his shoulder. Commander Morrison, Admiral Koth said quietly, I voted in favor of this expansion. But I want you to understand, if this fails catastrophically, if these joint colonies become flashpoints for renewed violence, Earth will bear some of that responsibility. I understand, Admiral, Jake replied. But with respect, doing nothing while species tear each other apart is not a neutral choice either. That also has consequences. Koth studied him for a moment, then nodded. You humans are either very brave or very foolish. I have not decided which yet. Probably both, Jake said with a slight smile. Later that evening, Jake found Lisa standing alone on the observation deck of the Endeavour, watching the stars slip past as the ship traveled back toward Earth. Vexthor and General Korth had returned to System J447 to oversee the colonies, but Lisa had been called back to Earth to brief the government directly. You did it again, Jake said, joining her at the viewport. You convinced them. We convinced them, Lisa corrected. Jake, none of this works without all of us. Vexthor's willingness to change, Korth's courage to face his trauma, your support when I needed it, Earth's resources and reputation. It is a team effort. Still, you are the one who started it all. You are the one who looked at a 3-meter-tall war beast and thought I should treat his wounds and make friends. Lisa laughed. When you put it that way, it does sound crazy. Her expression grew more serious. But Jake, I am scared. What if Admiral Koth is right? What if we are setting up these species for worse conflict? What if our interference makes things worse instead of better? Then we will adapt and try something else, Jake said. Lisa, you taught me something over these past months. You taught me that the alternative to trying, to hoping, is giving up. And I have seen what happens when people give up on peace. It just means more war. Hope is not a strategy, Lisa quoted, smiling slightly. No, but it is a start, Jake replied. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars. Finally, Lisa spoke again. Do you ever think about how strange this all is? 6 months ago, the galaxy's most feared war beast was a symbol of terror. Now he is reading Earth literature and help